Probably a few more people need to join based on the number of participants I see on the screen. So we'll give just a couple more minutes as people log in, and so we'll get started momentarily. Patrice, it's about 3 minutes after. I'm seeing, we're expecting a few more than I see participants. Should we go ahead and get started? Oh, there she is. Patrice says that she is sending out a couple more invitations. So we'll wait just a couple more minutes as people continue to sign on and get registered.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. Thanks, Tim, for the announcement. We are doing a little more registration entry for some of the folks that are sending these emails really quick. So if you guys could just give just a few minutes, we should be able to start. It does look like there's several people here now, so I believe we're nearly prepared. Just a few more moments.
If you're just joining, we're waiting just a couple more minutes as a few more participants log in, and we're waiting on the cue from Patrice, and she'll let us know when we have just about everybody on board. So hang in there. Thanks. Okay, it looks like we are ready to start, and we have all the participants that we should have or need to have for a quorum. We may have a few come in and out, but we'll go forward. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the time that you're investing, not only in this meeting, but everything you did to prepare. I know we had a lot of pre-meeting material to review. So thank you for taking the time to do that and investing in all of that. Some logistics here. Obviously, the meeting is public, so we are being live streamed on YouTube, and public who chooses to view this compelling meeting is watching and hopefully getting a lot out of what we're able to do today as a board. Some protocols. If you are not speaking or presenting, please get very familiar with the mute button on your screen and click that and stay muted unless you have a question or unless you are presenting. That will help with feedback and background noise and all those things that otherwise might make it hard to hear the presenters at the time. So please do that. Let's see what else. If you want to make a comment during the presentations or ask a question, again, you can do it through the chat feature that's on WebEx, or you can unmute and kind of jump in with a question to the presenters. So be ready for that. When it comes time, we have a lot of votes on this meeting today. And the way we'll do that is that we're going to, I'll make the announcement. I'll give opportunity for people to make motions and second via chat. If you have questions, again, we'll allow for that discussion. We'll do it through chat or through raised hands or unmuting. And then when we do votes, rather than do a roll call vote, we will assume that everyone approves unless you have some sort of a comment or abstention. We'll talk through that when the time comes. But we have a lot of those going on today, so we'll make sure that we give everybody the opportunity to share any concerns they might have in the meantime. As you know, you've seen from the emails that we've been sending out, we changed the configuration of our board due to federal regulations. And when we approved our state plan back in May, our bylaws added new members and number of members to our board configuration. So we have new board members this meeting for the first time. We threw them right into the water and made them start swimming with all this material to approve. So I just appreciate them being willing to join the board and and be a part of what we're trying to accomplish for our state. And 7 of the 9 new members are with us this morning, and just really appreciate you guys all being here. 5 members were appointed by the governor's office and were officially added to the board last week, and those are Ron Wade and Kyle Spurgeon, Jeff Vance, J. Paul Jackson, and Barry Ray. So just really appreciate the time that you guys are investing into this important work. And then we had 2 government representatives who were added to the board as well, per the federal regulations. So we have joining us Assistant Commissioner Mandy Johnson for vocational rehabilitation, and Interim Assistant Commissioner Jay Baker for adult education. So thank you, Mandy and Jay, for being willing to serve on our board. So thank you for that. Welcome those folks, and just appreciate your service to the state. Okay, so as we go through presentations today, we've got about 10 minutes for questions for each of the larger regions, and then 5 minutes for questions for each of the local boards. So if you have a question, we'll ask you to submit those through chat. And again, we'll review that later on as we get to that. Let's see. Hey, other good news. Many of you, I'm not going to break any HIPAA laws here because it's been pretty public, but Mayor Brooks was one of our friends who was impacted personally with COVID-19, but he has completely recovered. And Mayor Brooks, we're just so happy that we had that good news, and sorry you had to go through that, but so glad that you have a success story from that illness. So congratulations on your recovery, and we're just very happy to have you all better.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks for the thoughts and the prayers. Very much appreciated.
Absolutely. So we've got about, we're getting close to 70 folks on this WebEx with all the board members and the WIOA partners and the regional and the local staff. And then we've got 12 plan presenters, and there's 24 people on the WebEx who are available to help the presenters. So we have a lot of folks here, and that will be no small task for Isla Bradley to take roll call. So Isla, I'm going to turn it over to you for a roll call, and you tell us how you want us to manage that.
Good morning, everyone. I believe that everyone will be taken off of mute by Justin, and then I'll just go down the roll call. Typing in the unmuted for just the next couple of minutes for the roll call, then we can go back on mute. As I call your name, please confirm your attendance. If you are a member of a local workforce development board, please state the local board. And if you are representing by proxy, please state your name for the record. Martha Axford.
Tennessee, local board.
Brandy Faust for State Senator Paul Bailey.
Here.
Interim Assistant Commissioner Jay Baker.
Present, and I'm honored to join this group. Thanks.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner Sherelle Campbell Street for Commissioner Danielle Barnes. Once again, Deputy Commissioner Sherelle Campbell Street. Jason Bates.
Present.
Tim Berry.
I am present.
Sarah Noel for State Representative Clark Boyd. Once again, Sarah Noel. Ronnie Brewer.
Present.
Mayor Kevin Brooks.
Present.
Michelle Falcone. Once again, Michelle Falcone. Ben Ferguson.
Present, Southwest Local Board.
Bill Godwin.
I'm
Once
here.
again,
Thank you.
all right. Marshall Graves.
Present from Southeast Tennessee.
Ann Hatcher. Once again, Ann Hatcher.
Present.
Christine Hopkins. J. Paul Jackson. Once again, J. Paul Jackson. Assistant Commissioner Mandy Johnson. Commissioner Jeff McCord.
I'm Tyler.
Good morning. Vonda
Good morning.
McDaniel.
Good morning. Present.
Mayor E.L. Morton. Once again, Mayor E.L. Morton. All right. Tony Nicknajad.
Present.
Greg Persinger. Once again, Greg Persinger.
Present.
Stuart Price.
Present.
Barry Ray. Once again, Barry Ray.
Present.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Ann Thompson for Commissioner Bob Rolfe.
Good morning. I'm present.
Good morning. Chief of Programs, Jean Luna for Commissioner Penny Schwinn.
Present.
Kyle Spurgeon. Once
Kyle is
again,
having some audio issues. He's mentioned it in the chat. It looks like he's working on it.
okay, all right. Thank you. Jeff Vance. Once again, Jeff Vance.
I'm here.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Kevin Vaughn.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. And Ron Wade.
I'm present. Good morning.
Good morning. And good morning to everyone. And Chairman, we have a quorum.
That's great news. Thank you, Eiler, for doing it for us and everybody's patience. So, all right, everybody back on mute. Here's the way we're going to do this vote. We have an approval of minutes, and so hopefully you've been able to review those from the last meeting based on the document that was sent out. And I will call for a motion, and we can ask for a motion through chat, and then a second. So we have a motion to accept the minutes as presented. I have Jason Bates making a motion, and does anyone second that motion to accept the minutes? And then Marshall Graves seconds. So what we'll do is we will say that we'll have some discussion and comments here. And if you want to be recognized for discussion or ask any questions, you can do that through chat as well. All right, and seeing none, I will say that unless I have opposition, that we will approve the motion to accept the minutes as presented. So we'll give a minute for any opposition or abstention. And seeing and hearing none, we will say that the motion to approve the minutes has been approved. All right, so that's kind of the way the votes will go all along here. All right, I'm anxious to hear from Dr. McCord. Why don't you tell us from your perspective, what's been going on?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just take a minute. It's fair to say, and it's no secret that it's been a challenging time, but first and foremost, I want to thank this board for the support during this time. Encouragement is powerful, and we appreciate you giving that power to us. I also want to thank the local areas and the people that make those partnerships possible. You've been on the front lines of this thing the whole time, and you're doing amazing work. Thank you for that as well. Lastly, even though we've done a lot of work, we still have a lot of work to do. And we're encouraged by some of the latest numbers on unemployment insurance. We're seeing things trend down, which is great. And one of the things that we have talked about, but now it's ever more obvious to us, and I think you're going to see us live this out as an organization even more than we ever have before, that unemployment insurance is workforce development. Two sides of the same coin, but they only have currency, they only have value if they stay together. And I'm excited about the initiatives that you'll see coming forward and the integration between those two processes. Now it's not only nice, but necessary for those different departments and those different processes and those purposes actually to work hand in hand as one. So again, you'll begin to see that take place. And finally, I get asked a lot what the future looks like in workforce development, and really the fundamentals are still the fundamentals. And I think we see that in the amazing work during this whole time that was done with apprenticeship programs. I'm not sure if this board is aware yet, or you should be, and maybe you'll hear it this meeting, but the folks there led by Tyra Kopis in that apprenticeship program have already surpassed their year goal in apprentices during COVID-19 crisis, and actually doubled the amount of new apprenticeship programs started that typically would be started in a year, again, during the COVID-19 crisis. And so the lesson there for us all, I think, is that employers still see and still need skilled workers, and still will partner and invest to make that happen, because it's a business need. And so we move out of our health and economic condition that we're currently in. We have a lot of hope and optimism that we'll move right into doing the work that we really love to do, and that's getting people back to work. So, Mr. Chairman, with that is my report.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. And that's a good report. That's a positive report, and appreciate the insight there. And just really ditto your thanks for all the hard work that everybody's been doing. And Assistant Commissioner Felt's hard work clearly needs to be used in the same sentence for your team and all the folks that are helping with unemployment benefits. So if you have a minute, why don't you tell us what's happening in your world and what we can expect coming up. Rusty, were you able to join us today?
Yes, sir. I'm joining by phone. There was something wrong with my WebEx account. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks. Go ahead.
Okay. So thank you for the opportunity this morning to speak on such an important subject, facing our state and the country. And, the old saying, knowledge is power, is very relevant right now because there's so many misconceptions about the program. So I appreciate the ability to clear that up with such an important organization. Some of the facts right out of the gate, since mid-March, we have taken in excess of 800,000 new unemployment claims. So that's not additional claims included in that count, which is a scary number. And what we've had to do is face regular unemployment claims, disaster unemployment claims, unfortunately, due to the tornadoes that went through our state twice, pandemic unemployment, and then the FPUC program where we added $600 to benefits for so many weeks, extensions when people drew out whatever program they were on. And now our latest challenge, obviously, was the Lost Wage Assistance Program, LWA, and adding the $300 to the benefit checks for weeks of since 8/1. And I'm glad to report that Tennessee is one of the few states that has actually done that in the country. And as of this morning, we are on pace to have already paid 260,000 Tennesseans that additional $300 for those 3 weeks. Now, I will stress that we have a few more to go that we've got to reach out to and message on their system dashboard to get an answer to a question. And we're looking to do that next week. But I'm super proud of the efforts of my team that we've already done that for so many Tennesseans. The unemployment rate when all this started in mid-March was right about 3.3, 3.5%. Now, here we are in August, and the unemployment rate is 9.5%. So we've had significant challenges in the last few months that everybody is aware of. So many different programs that some have never been administered before. So my team had significant challenges working with our vendor to try to get those stood up, but we've done that successfully. One of the main things that a lot of people don't understand about unemployment is every time the quarter changes in unemployment, you have to go back and reassess so many claimants to see if you're paying them on the right program, because we do get audited by USDOL through the comptroller to make sure that we're paying correctly. So that has been a big obstacle to overcome. The sheer volume of unemployment, we were staffed for a 3.5% unemployment rate in the state, and then we had to fight the sheer volume, but we've gone out and hired a couple of extra resources and a couple of call center companies, and I'm glad to say that's been beneficial to us. And then, of course, Dr. Lovett's side of the house, Workforce Services, really stepped up in addition to all the other departments and gave us some extra resources that they could muster. And so that's been very helpful. One of the biggest challenges as well, Chairman Berry, has been unemployment is a confusing program in and of itself in regular times, but you take all the misconceptions that were put in there with the CARES Act and now LWA, and sometimes the media gets that incorrectly and the wrong message gets out there, so we've had to fight that. One of our latest challenges, but one of our most important challenges for this state, in my particular opinion, is the reimplementation of our job search program and when we're going to put that together. We're working on a plan now. I've met with Dr. Lovett and Deputy Commissioner Thomas, and we're working on that together, and we'll be in touch and getting that message out. But that's an extreme need for the claimants of the state and our employer base. I mean, that's one thing we've got to remember is how important it is to get these folks back to work for the success of our state. As of right now, we've paid out, speaking of successes, we've paid out right at $5 billion in unemployment to Tennesseans, and that's not counting the new LWA payment that we've made in the last few days. Another couple of successes is, Commissioner McCord signed off on employer non-charges to help our employer base, waived the waiting week for our claimants so we could get money in their hands faster. So we've had a lot of successes. We've had a lot of challenges. And, Commissioner McCord, I always follow his cue on we've done a lot, but we've still got a lot to do. And so I'll finish by saying, it's extremely valuable to us to have the support that we've had from the legislative level, from the governor's office, from the state workforce board. The support I get from my commissioner and Deputy Commissioner Thomas has been invaluable. My team has done a great job. This department has stepped up and really, really gone to bat with me. It wasn't just an unemployment insurance division mountain to climb. It was the whole department. And finally, I want to thank you, Chairman Berry, for always being so interested in our state workforce and your knowledge and concern of the program and their well-being. You and I got to speak the other day for quite a while to answer some questions you had, and I just really appreciate that. So that's it for me, Chairman Berry. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And, just working off of the conversation we had, can you give us just a little bit of insight as to what we might expect in the next 6 months or so? I know it's almost impossible to say, hey, Rusty, why don't you predict the unpredictable for us? But based on, we'll give you the grace that we give the weatherman. Just tell us what you think it is. We won't hold you accountable if you get it wrong. But based on the trends you've seen so far, what do you think we as a board should expect? What do you think we'll see coming up with unemployment over the next 6 months?
Well, Chairman Berry, I will tell you from my standpoint, I'm lucky that I have support from my Deputy Commissioner and Commissioner McCord in that they share a belief that I've had for years. I've been in unemployment so long. I used to work in the Career Center where we did unemployment, and at the same time we signed somebody for unemployment. If they weren't going back to work, we instantly started job searching them. So I'm fortunate to work for two people who believe that this is one organization, not two different things. In my particular opinion, I'm seeing some trending down of unemployment. I think that things are looking up. I don't know what that'll look like in 2 months when you're in a pandemic with so many variables that you can't predict. I don't know what'll happen in 2 months or 6 months. But I will tell you the most important challenge for this state, this department, all of us, is getting our workforce back out there to work, because what we don't want, Chairman Berry, that you and I discussed the other day, what we don't want is for our workforce to be off so long this year that next year when they work for an employer who has seasonal or regular layoffs, we don't want them to be in 2021 and going through those regular periods of separation that they're used to, and then not being eligible for unemployment based on their base period wages that would, be absent from this pandemic. So that's a big challenge for our state, is we desperately need to get back to work, because that's something we don't want to face in a year or so when the extensions from the federal government run out.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I just appreciate Governor Lee's stance on trying to keep the economy open, trying to keep businesses open. doing everything possible to keep folks in the workforce, because that's the best opportunity for them to have, to have the support they need, is the support they get from their jobs.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. And, just commenting, calling attention to Ronnie Brewer's comment to everybody and directed toward you, Rusty, just saying thank you to the work of you and your team during this time. So I know that I agree with her sentiment. Just wanted to call that out since you're on the phone and can't see the chat. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I will pass that to my team.
Yep. Okay, well, thanks for your time. I think we're ready to move on to some policy approvals. And we'll start with the policy updates from the Oversight Committee. So, Ann Hatcher, do you have a minute to take us through the changes that we're recommending there?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was double muted between my computer and my phone, so take a moment to pull up this. We just had one policy from our committee, and this was the transfer authority policy. And essentially what this is about is just making sure that the local boards are using the Grants for TN system to process transfer requests for funds between WIOA and the dislocated worker programs. So it looked to me like it was just a little bit of an effort to try to get more electronic and digital, as we all are doing these days.
Okay. So hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to review the policy changes as presented. And so now we'll need a motion to accept the changes as we've seen. Have a motion from Ben Ferguson. Does anyone second?
Second, Tony Nick-Najad.
Thank you, Tony. So a second from Tony. And we'll give a minute for discussion about the recommended changes to that policy. All right, seeing or hearing no discussion, we will take a vote, and the vote will assume that everyone's in agreement unless I see an opposition either through chat or through phone. Okay, and seeing no discussion, seeing no abstention, seeing no objection, we will say that that policy has been approved as presented. So, Ann, thank you and your committee for making sure that was reviewed thoroughly, and we'll move forward with that. All right, so next is Stuart Price. Tell us about the policies that we're looking for here.
Good morning. The Operations Committee brings two policies for board approval. The first is a youth eligibility policy. The policy presented outlines and clarifies youth eligibility and definitions as required by USDOL for the WIOA Title I Comprehensive Youth Employment Program. There are revisions presented within the policy that will require additional actions from local boards, but offer the flexibility to be innovative and distinctively define a specific youth population for their areas. There are the two revisions, just to give you a point of reference. Both were introduced by Interim Assistant Commissioner Jay Baker, so thank you for his review and input. On page 3, you'll note, and I'll actually convey to you what his points were so that you understand. On page 3, section 3B, it states it formerly stated that testing for basic skills deficiency should be done through Tennessee Department of Adult Education when applicable. It used Tennessee Department of Adult Education again on page 4, section 3C. As there is not an actual agency designated Tennessee Department of Adult Education, Mr. Baker recommended that this be changed to local providers of adult education services or something similar. His second point was on page 3 also, section 3B as well. It stated formally that testing should be done through adult education. However, adult education programs under WIOA Title II must abide their own eligibility requirements in rendering services, including providing assessments. These include that an individual must be at least 16 years old and not enrolled or required to be enrolled in secondary school under any state law. Mr. Baker's understanding in his input is that out-of-school youth would be eligible and in-school youth would not be eligible for adult education services for these requirements. To remain compliant with adult education eligibility, adult education providers should only provide testing for the out-of-school youth participants. Mr. Baker recommended that clarifying language be added to that end, and it was, which you'll note in red on the policy. The second policy that I assume, Mr. Chairman, I'll go through both of them.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do both, and then we can vote on both together, perhaps.
Okay. The second policy submitted by the Operations Committee for approval addresses Senior Community Service Employment Program, post-agency closures due to natural disasters and pandemics. The need for this new State Workforce Development Board policy was recognized largely as a result of the COVID impact on our senior participants. This policy will allow participants to receive paid sick leave for those who are unable to participate in the required program activities due to worksite pandemic restrictions and/or natural disaster related closures. Participants who meet the criteria would be eligible to receive up to 80 hours, 2 pay periods, at their current hourly wage. The policy also allows participants to request sick leave in situations where elected officials have declared an emergency and issued executive orders with specific restrictions. For example, school closures, travel restrictions, restrictions on gatherings, or public transportation restrictions. So those are the two policies that the Operations Committee has reviewed and submits to the board for approval.
Thank you, Stuart. All right, so what I'll do is I'll ask for a motion to accept the policy changes for both policies as presented. Ron Wade makes that motion. Thank you. Anybody second? Okay, Vonda McDaniel is the second. And so let's open it for discussion. If you have a discussion point, you can unmute and ask, or you can chat the question or discussion about one or both policies. Seeing and hearing none, we will ask for the vote, and the vote will assume that everyone is in approval unless you abstain or oppose by chatting or unmuting and letting us know. All right, and seeing no abstentions or opposition, we will say that those two policies have passed as presented. And
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Oh, if I may, having concluded that, I would like to recognize Nikisha Ricks. Just her service to our team, our Operations Committee is just outstanding. And of course, she had an opportunity to recognize Isla earlier, but she definitely deserves kudos for her service and working through this difficult landscape to get things done and done well. So just a big thank you to her.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And Stuart, to your team, and thanks for doing all the pre-work to get your committee, reviewing and and getting all the changes and updates before presenting today. So thank you, good work. Okay, I think we're about ready to move on to this big book of plans. And before we do that, I just want to thank all of the tireless work. Thank everybody all of the staff and workers who just absolutely work diligently to review the plans, put the books together, put the recommendations together for this board. Thank you for the local and regional leaders who took the time to put the presentations together, create the videos, allow us to view them on our time, and just a tremendous amount of work by so many people to make this happen smoothly in this virtual environment. So it was, in my mind, an easy way to see the presentations and the way the staff put these books together, presented it in a way that I could follow it along very well. So thanks to all the people who did that. Assistant Commissioner Lovett, what do you want to tell us about the process before we get started on the review and approval of these plans?
And thank you, Chairman Barry, and good morning to the entire board. And first, I want to agree with you. Thank you to the entire Workforce Services team for the hard work, along with our local partners of making this possible during a virtual environment, which is different for all of us. Two things I wanted to point out that are the backdrop for how we got to this point for the review of the local and regional plans. First, from the Ernst & Young report that was released last year this time, there was a mention that the local boards in the regions needed a little bit more time after the state plan was developed to meet and convene with their partners to make sure they developed a plan of action locally and regionally that made good sense. And so we were very fortunate to take heart what that was provided in that report and allow the local boards and the regions a little bit more time than normal to create these plans, which we hope you found to be acceptable and very thorough in terms of how they produced them. Also, in COVID-19, it created some challenges because the state plan was just approved. Guidance was released in April 1, but how we had to figure out how could we do these convenings virtually, how could we provide enough information to the board and all partners to make sure that these plans are reflective of what Tennessee wants for a workforce system. And again, I hope you'll find these discussions coming up to be very pleasing and reflective of what we want to see for the state. So again, we started April 1 with the guidance to the local areas and the regions. On June 12th, they sent us the first iteration of their plan, which also included a 15-day public commenting period. We submitted our comments back near the end of June, and the boards took in the public commenting period, those comments from that period, and also our feedback, revised their plans. And what you have before you is an iteration of comments, feedback, and the boards working to develop what would be acceptable for your review today. One thing that we tried to do also was to make sure that the board had enough opportunities to interact and ask questions related to what was being presented. So hopefully, Chairman Barry, and to the entire board, you've had enough information so that this conversation coming up is really getting to the heart, the true nature of each plan, to make sure that this is in alignment with what you see as a workforce system for the state. And the last thing I'll mention, Chairman Barry, is that this will not end after whenever those plans are approved. We plan to continue with quarterly progress reports, submitting the first report to this board in February of 2021. This also will include a new strategy for technical assistance to make sure those things that the boards felt that they wanted to endeavor in the coming years, that we were providing enough support from the system office to help them get there. And the other thing I will say is during this time of COVID-19, I feel that the system has come a little closer. We have weekly meetings now with the executive directors and the regional directors, and it's allowed us to make sure that we have a good pulse on what's going on across the state, but also for our executive directors and local boards, they can get feedback and also ask questions that are pressing in a weekly manner versus before it was sometimes a little bit too much time in between, and with COVID-19 and Zoom and Skype, we've been able to be a closer system as we should be. So all that to be stated is that we hopefully have given you enough information, enough looks and iterations. Hopefully the videos were very informative to really capture the highlight of and the essence of what each local and regional plan will present as they would like to move forward as a workforce system locally and regionally. And Chairman Berry, I think I'll stop there and just say this has been a 5-month process that I think I'm very proud of. And again, as your points made for the workforce services team, they worked really hard and been very thoughtful in trying to make sure that we presented what was the best thing to do for the state, for the regions, and for our local board.
I would agree. You should be very proud. The team should be very proud. So thank you for that overview. Okay, I think the way we're going to do this is that we'll start, and even though we have seen the planned presentations, I think what I'd like to do is ask each of the presenters, not to rehash the entire presentation, but why don't you focus on one thing in your presentation that you're really proud of and that you want to call out. And then secondly, one concern or one need that you have from this board that we can best help you with. And then we'll open it up for discussion and questions from the board. So we'll start with the West Tennessee Grant region, and Christy Bennett, I think you're up. Looking for Christy Bennett. Is she presenting today?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, but it's quite an echo. I don't know if you have her on speakerphone. Maybe you can lift the handset instead.
Thank you again for your comments of the hard work and synergy that we have been providing during the planning of our regional and local plans. First of all, just like to say good morning. My name is Christy Bennett, a regional director in West Tennessee. Just wanted to thank the board for taking the time to review the West Tennessee regional plan and presentation. I think it shows our synergy and our collaboration that we have had with our partners and our planning councils throughout the 4 or 5 month planning period. We do have a good grasp of the efficiency and applying regional workforce initiatives and best practices, as you could see throughout our plan, along with the application of innovation models that we are trying to promote more regionalism in the West region. The one question that we did receive was considering in transition from serving clients from an in-person to virtual due to the COVID-19 pandemic, how are we significantly have user rates impacted? As you'll hear this throughout all of our local presentations, our programs across the region did receive somewhat of a slowdown starting in March with the initial state of emergency proclamation. But as you've heard, our teams quickly shifted into gears, as Rusty said on his presentation, to reorganize and communicate a new operating procedure. Each of our local areas shifted their paradigm to work heavily serving our UI customers. We started this by training additional UI staff within each of the AJCs across our region to develop a robust team that was ready to assist the thousands of claimants flooding our system across the West Tennessee region. And we are in the middle of a workforce shift, and we feel like that we're all learning new jobs and new ways to conduct business in the West, as many of you are. In March of this year, when this happened, our programs did receive somewhat of a slowdown. But the challenges we face with anything, we've approached this pandemic in the same way. So teams, this has really taught our leaders how to approach this as an opportunity to grow and learn new ways to operate and get us out of our comfort zones, basically. Our team adjusted the new communication models to switch over to the virtual platforms to serve our customers. We also focused on what we could do rather than what we couldn't do. And now that some time has passed and things are kind of, getting back to opening up, we are seeing an increase across the region. We're also making every opportunity to utilize the additional funding streams that are being made available to our area. So we want to say thank you for that, and so that we're able to serve the most vulnerable, and we're applying those to the best of our abilities as we face new challenges, as everybody is every day. Here's a breakdown to show how our services were impacted. Wagner Pizer and our WIOA totals for Q3 and Q4. Q3 for Wagner Pizer totals was 1,774, and Q4 totals for Wagner Pizer were 441. For WIOA totals for Q3 was 946, and Q4 totals for WIOA was 264. So you can see there was an impact, but as I said, as things are opening back up, these are increasing every day. All of our centers are open and limiting the number of people in the center to maintain social distancing, but we're also doing virtual so that everybody is being served. That's pretty much all I have, unless you have questions for Jennifer, Kyla, or myself.
Okay, thank you very much. I will open it up for questions or discussion. So if anyone has a comment that they'd like to make or a question they'd like to ask, do so by chat or by unmuting. Okay, I'm seeing no additional questions. So I think we're ready to go for a vote of approval. I was very pleased that the whole plan is ready for approval with no caveats. So thank you to you and your team for everything along those lines. So, all right, here's the way we're going to do this. We have a couple of abstentions that we're going to have to ask based on different board members' participation on local boards, so that it doesn't appear as a conflict of interest to vote for something for which they helped build into the plan. So what we'll do is we'll ask for the vote, and we will assume abstentions for the people who serve on those local boards. So in this case, for the larger West region, we would assume that Ben Ferguson and Ron Wade would abstain from this vote. And then, so you wouldn't have to necessarily call that out. We're going to assume that's how we'll record the vote. And then if there are further abstentions, those are the ones who would need to indicate on chat or by unmuting and letting us know. So, but first, let me ask for a motion to approve the plan for the West Tennessee region as presented. We have a motion from Jason Bates. Looks like we have a second from Bill Godwin. So let's open it up to discussion or questions. And seeing and hearing none, I will ask for the vote with the assumed abstentions from Ben and Ron. Any further opposition or abstentions for this vote? Seeing and hearing none, we will assume that this plan is approved. So thank you So Christy and everybody who helped put that together, please express your thanks, express our thanks to your team. Very, very good work on this. All right, let's move on to the Northwest Local Board. And we have Jennifer Bain who is presenting. And again, Jennifer, same question. Is there something that you really want to call our attention to, whether it's something you're proud of or something that you really need from this board that would best help your local board?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time to review the Northwest Local Plan and the presentation. Something that we're really proud of from our plan and our presentation that you can probably tell is our efforts towards fulfilling the governor's priorities, particularly our pre-apprenticeship programs and our work with apprenticeships, as well as our reentry program, our reentry advanced manufacturing program that we have in partnership with our local jails, and some vocational training programs that we mentioned. And really, as far as Indeed, we've been very fortunate to receive financial support, and that's our biggest thing that we need to keep these programs running. So we greatly appreciate that. And to answer the question that we received about the effects of COVID, as Christy mentioned, like the rest of the state, beginning at the end of March through the month of April, we did see a significant increase in unemployment customers with over 12,000 new claims filed in our area. With this increase, staff in the American Job Centers, as well as the board's business services staff, shifted their focus to providing meaningful assistance for unemployment to both claimants and our employers. And as our unemployment rate rose to 12.5% in April, and we served more unemployment customers, we did see a decrease in our enrollments in most of our other programs, despite the services being available virtually. For the Title I programs, we would have expected some decline due to seasonal fluctuations, but our enrollments decreased from 99 in the first quarter of this year to 55 in the second quarter. Adult education enrollments decreased from 119 to 33. Wagner-Pizer program enrollments decreased from 204 to 45. TAA enrollments decreased from 7 to 3. SNAP enrollments from 32 to 27, and vocational rehabilitation enrollments from 100 to 54. As the unemployment rate has decreased down to 8.5% as of July, we have started to see an increase in our enrollments in these programs. Hiring has picked back up in various industries, including healthcare, manufacturing, and we've had 38 new on-the-job training participants enrolled in Title I since June 1st, and we've got about 30 more in progress. As post-secondary institutions have started to return to for the fall semester, we've also seen an increase in our Title I occupational skills training enrollments, with 76 enrolled since June, which is up just slightly from 73 during this time last year. And we've also continued to enroll young adults in paid work experience during this time, and we've had 28 enrolled since June 1st. In our area, we were fortunate to have many measures already in place that allowed us to transition to virtual services fairly quickly and to continue our enrollments. All of our board staff and most of the American Job Center staff already have laptops and Vonage internet phones. Staff are already accustomed to using the JobScan system to obtain electronic signatures and documentation. The majority of the board staff are also already working remotely. We've also added virtual meeting software and utilize social media to promote virtual events, including our virtual job fair and virtual showcase of the Registered Electrical Apprenticeship Preparation or REAP programs, third class at Amtech that began in July. And as you've seen in our plan presentation, we also offered a part on-site and part virtual hiring event for Benton County's 2020 high school graduates to provide work for the summer as part of our Rural Initiative grant. We hope to offer similar events to these in the future, as well as more virtual hiring events. And that's all we have. In case anybody else has any other questions for us.
Thank you, Jennifer. One thing I noticed in the presentation was just the employer engagement. Really, you had some good best practices to share, and just appreciate you putting those on the website. I would encourage all the other regions to go look at that and see what they're doing to get that employer engagement as high as they are. So thank you for sharing that. Any questions for Jennifer and her presenters? Okay, I hear and see no additional questions for Northwest. So let's move forward with a vote and approval. So on this one, we have no required abstentions. So I will ask for a motion to accept the plan as presented. All right, I see let's see, motion from Jay Paul is the first one that I saw. And then a second from Ben Ferguson. So that's how we'll record that. Any discussion regarding the plan before we move for a vote? All right, hearing no discussion, I will move for the vote, and we will take the vote, assuming that everyone approves, unless I see or hear an opposition or abstention. And seeing and hearing none, we will say that the Northwest plan is approved as presented with no further caveats. So thank you so much, Jennifer and your team for putting that together, and looking forward to watching that plan come to fruition. Okay, next we are moving on to Southwest and Kennehan. I think it's up to you. What would you like to call attention to the board as part of your plan?
Thank you and good morning to everyone. I want to thank the board for reviewing our plan and allowing us to present. Southwest Tennessee has definitely been significantly affected by COVID-19. All programs have reported negative effects to their enrollments, especially during the April through June timeframe. To break it down, Wagner-Pizer had a 62% decrease in enrollments. Title I, a 66% decrease. SNAP, a 13% decrease. And adult ed enrollments decreased by 73%. VR, in addition, had a 56% decrease. However, with the implementation of virtual enrollments and the phased reopening of the AJCs, enrollments are starting to pick up now. Our KPI goals have also been negatively impacted as well. Due to the increase of UI benefits, the majority of the calls and in-person visits have been centered around UI assist. This is applicable for both customers, participants, and employers. We have many employers that reached out to our team needing assistance with UI instead of the main focus of recruitment and workforce service needs. Much of the effort over the last couple of months have shifted to dislocated workers. Before the pandemic, Southwest was fortunate in having a low number of dislocated workers. However, we anticipate an increase of eligible participants needing employment and training activities, as well as supportive services due to temporary and permanent layoffs. I'm going to ask Holly Wood, our regional director, to affect the plan being approved with conditions. Holly.
And partners. I'm Holly Wood. I'm the regional director for Southwest. The recommendation.
The whole time I was talking, it was echoing back to me loud.
The second question that we received, the recommendation that's being put before you for our local plan is approval with conditions. And so the question addresses how we're going to comply with the conditions required for approval of our plan. And so upon review earlier in the week of the measures that were outlined as needing further attention in the operating systems and strategies section, we've already begun to address some of these and feel like we can complete these revisions fairly quickly. While we feel several of these items were discussed throughout the plan in other sections, we do recognize that the identified measures require more specific details centered around our local board strategies and additional partner input in this particular section. By further consulting with the appropriate partners and any state technical assistance that may be needed, we're confident that the outline items will be addressed in full to receive approval status of our local plan. Furthermore, we're prepared to detail our progress, our changes, and any challenges to the approved plan in our quarterly update reports to you all to ensure accountability. We have a new executive director, Vicki Bunch, that's going to start next week, actually, on September 1st. And so our local leadership team will be focusing heavily on strategic planning and goals so that Southwest reaches its full potential. So I hope that you all have the confidence in us to get where we need to be. A few highlights of our plan video. I would say we've made significant progress within the last year or so. We are implementing some new innovative ideas and some best practices from some other areas. We've recently started a jail program in one of our at-risk counties and are hoping to do some more of those. We are working to implement manufacturing days. And so that's some of the innovative things that we're working on, and we've got a lot more to come. So hopefully you will be able to see those progresses made in our quarterly reports to you all. And if you have any other questions, we'll be happy to answer those at this time. But we do thank you very much for taking the time to listen to our responses and review the plan.
Holly and Kenneth, thank you for addressing those conditions and how you plan to address those. Any questions or comments for Kenna and Holly?
Not a question, more of a comment. As Holly referenced, not only are we dealing with COVID and several other things in Southwest, but we had to go through a director transition as well. And so I really want to commend Holly and Keena for their Herculean efforts over the last few months to try to keep everything moving forward and allow the board the time to go through the selection process. And thank you to those two as well as the rest of the board staff.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate those comments. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so for this local plan, we will assume the abstention from Ben because of his involvement with that local board, but I will entertain a motion to approve the plan as approved with the conditions that they've addressed. And I have a motion from Marshall Graves. Do I have a second? Okay, it looks like I have a second from Jason Bates is the first one I saw on the list here. So thank you, Jason. And any additional discussion before we go for the vote? Hearing and seeing none, we'll assume that as we vote, everyone will approve with the extension of Ben Ferguson and any other abstentions or opposition. Seeing and hearing none, we will say that the Southwest plan is approved as presented with those conditions. So thank you so much for the work and time that you guys put into that. And I can see that one get put into action. Okay, I think we're ready for Greater Memphis.
Good morning from Greater Memphis.
Yes.
So I want to address first the question about technology and the transfer over. So we are enrolling online and able to upload documents virtually, and we're doing supportive services through reloadable cards so that participants don't have to come into a center to receive those supportive services. Our ITAs and OJTs are actually back to normal. All of our providers have moved to an online virtual platform. So enrollments are continuing and actually back to a normal service level. We had a question if the service wait times were longer, and they're not. Our traffic is greatly decreased. We've had a 77% decrease in our overall traffic through our centers, but all of our AJCs are open through appointment or through virtual or for walk-ins. So there is no wait time to see someone in any of our AJCs. So we have 2 providers that are actually having robust online learning platforms with thousands of online classes and tutoring skills and basic skills. Those are ResCare and Grant Associates. So we do have a robust learning platform for any of our participants who would like to utilize those services. We had a question around youth, to be more specific around some of our youth. So I want to describe the program that we have. We have 3 providers. One of our providers has all 14 elements delivered in-house. And so other programs, other youth programs, Ross actually refers to communities and schools of Memphis, and any of the providers refer back to the provider that has all 14 elements so that we keep youth in-house and they aren't shuffled around to outside agencies. We also want to talk about Equus and Lyft. So we have a partnership, particularly with Lyft, for ride shares, and that's going to be throughout the entire region. That's coming up probably in the next month, and especially for young adults who don't have the transportation, or in our rural areas where transportation is a challenge, we think the partnership with Lyft is going to meet a significant need. So we have work experience that's picking up dramatically because we have moved to a virtual platform. So we are able to have virtual work experiences for young adults that are not able to do it in another way in person. So we've had a pretty good increase in what we're doing in that. So Communities in School of Memphis has already begun purchasing laptops for young adults who need that service in order to continue with their programs, whether that be ITA related or basic participation in their program. So we had a question around business services, and I actually am going to defer to our business services manager, Roderick Woody, who can give you a more detailed and more robust answer to the question.
Morning. The question we received was describe the implementation of initiatives in support of the business services strategy. Greater Memphis has implemented the work-based learning initiatives by obtaining direct feedback from employers, industry sector councils, various chambers and different workforce development partners, and public-private entities. So we took the feedback we received from those various institutions, has trained our business services team in implementation of those various initiatives. Although all of our team members can't execute those, they're giving a soft sale to the employers that they're engaging. With that soft sale, if the employer is interested in one of those, especially it's the business services grants, if they're interested in the business grants, then that information will be shared back to the board. Once we receive the pre-application, we will contact that employer, send the information to one of our service providers, whether that's Equidis or Grant Associates, and they'll communicate back with that employer to execute the contract. Other things that we're doing here locally is working directly with our chambers and economic development partners, participating in one-stop meetings with those partners to give a comprehensive roadmap of available incentives in the overall workforce economic development ecosystem. We're also conducting monthly business service partner meetings and highlighting featured employers in our industry sectors. We're enhancing our employment engagement by listening more to our employers to identify what their actual needs are, not giving them an entire printout of our services, but actually listening to the employers and addressing their actual concerns. Of course, you all know we're utilizing Jobs for TN for job orders and virtual recruitment. We're doing more customized recruitment events and pre-screening based on the employer's specifications, not only just having job fairs, open-ended job fairs, but pre-screening individuals prior to that hiring event to make sure they do meet the minimum qualifications of that employer. By doing that, we're not wasting that employer's time. We're also presenting untapped talent to those employers, focusing on individuals that maybe have a criminal background, youth, as well as dislocated workers and individuals with disabilities. And during that time frame, we're also reintroducing those business grants to the employers. It's my hopes that this input has answered your question in regarding the implementation of the initiatives that we're doing to support our business services strategy. Any questions?
Thank you for the insight in addressing some of those. Any questions for Greater Memphis?
Chairman, less of a question, but in my tenure on this board, I would say this team has really put a tremendous amount of energy and improvement over the last year, and I congratulate them and appreciate their engagement.
I couldn't agree more, Marshall. Just seeing vast improvement in previous plans, and they've worked hard to improve those local relationships and meet those requirements of the plan. So thank you.
Hi, this is Tony Nicknajad, and this question's for Roderick and Kyla. Can you describe you mentioned the business grants. Could you describe any of the metrics or the any performance data that you're looking to track as a result of those grants?
One of the biggest metrics that we're looking at is retention. We're basically eliminating any employers that's treating us like a staffing agency. So those employers that apply year in and year out, and they're not retaining our participants, then we're not going to continue to execute any contracts with them. Secondly, we're looking at wage increases. So we want to ensure that our participants are completing these programs and receiving an increase in wages as they matriculate throughout their employment with that employer.
That's very helpful. Could you generalize or provide any more insight into the types of businesses that you're seeing? Or is it the same group, or are you starting to see a different set of employers now under the current circumstances?
We're starting to see a new group. I think word of mouth has helped us a lot. We're working with some of our unions here. So we've had a vast amount of different employees applying. We're primarily looking into our sectors. Advanced manufacturing is one that we have a lot of applicants in, as well as distribution. We're looking to expand more into healthcare as well.
Thanks.
I just would note that there is one thing in Greater Memphis that we face, and we've always faced, is the sheer number of providers that do similar services. So really being able to market what we do to employers that is of no cost but we always are constantly facing the challenge of many organizations doing similar services, oftentimes without the strings of WIOA, no holes and hoops to jump through. So I think our business engagement strategy is one that we are always refining to make sure we're providing the biggest ROI that we possibly can.
Thank you. Thank you. And in terms of providing any other referrals or services to employers, I know there's several other business programs that are designed to provide financial relief to employers. Do you feel like you have good data on that, or do you often receive questions on that?
Yes, we do. We've recently done asset tracking to identify other employers or organizations that don't necessarily offer exactly what we're offering. So we traditionally provide information on ECD. They have various different grants that are available that pretty much package with what we're doing on the WIOA side. But we are updating the database to cover everything that basically what we're not offering, to make sure the employers are equipped for basic success.
That's great to hear. I think one thing, and I'll reach out to the staff on this, but we have a program that we're trying to encourage more participation in. It's a Tennessee Small Business Relief Program, provides grants for businesses that have been impacted by the state's Safer at Home order in April. And so I'll work with the team here at Labor and Workforce to push some more information down to you and your colleagues, the other local boards.
Thank you.
Tony, great questions, and thanks for that discussion and working through that with them. Any other questions or comments for Greater Memphis?
If I could just make a comment, this is Ronnie. I really wanted to just kind of highlight the amount of transition that this board has taken under since Kyla has been at the helm of this board. There was a small window of time right before Kyla arrived when this was in jeopardy of losing control of their local area. And so there's just been a huge amount of improvement in the work that's coming out of our local workforce development agency, and I look forward to seeing what this team is going to be able to do. I also know that when I show up in an online conference and prior to COVID in an in-person conference, there's always, if it's workforce related, there's always a representative from WIN, Workforce Mid-South or Greater Memphis area that week. So I am just encouraged because I remember what this area was like prior. So I just want to just say congratulations and keep up the great work.
Ronnie, thank you. Great comments, and hopefully encouragement to Greater Memphis. So Kyla, if you would accept that compliment and certainly pass it on to the team that you work with there.
I absolutely will. I did just want to point out a couple of things that we promised the board just about a year ago that we have done. So we have formed a nonprofit agency to serve as our fiscal agent and staff to the board. So that was quite the undertaking to move out of Shelby County government and into a standalone 501c3. So that has happened. And we also have established our network of access points. So right now we have 10 access points throughout our 4-county area where participants can receive Title I services outside the 4 walls of the AJC. And we are planning to do another 20 more this upcoming program year.
Fantastic. Thanks for that update. I remember you saying that in previous presentations. So appreciate hearing the update and seeing the results of your efforts on that. So, all right. Are we ready to entertain a motion to accept? I think the only Abstention that we'll request here is, Ron Wade, I know you're a new member, but because you're part of that local board, we'll just ask for your abstention on this one. But anyone want to entertain a motion to approve the plan with the approved conditions? Looks like we have one from Greg. Anybody second? And from Jay. Okay, let's have some, any discussion, any additional discussion before we take the vote. Good discussion on this one. So I will say that with the assumed abstention from Ron, if I hear no further abstentions or opposition, give an opportunity for that. And hearing and seeing none, we will say that the Greater Memphis Plan is approved as presented with the approved conditions. Thank you, Kyla, and everybody on your team for making that work and all the good work that is going on there. Okay, so I think, is everybody ready for a break? We've got one scheduled. Let's give probably 10 minutes here. I know we're just a little bit behind, but let's try to come back at 11:42 is what I have, and we'll get started on Middle Tennessee. So stay connected. Don't disconnect from the meeting. Just pause and mute, and we'll come back in about 10 minutes. Thanks. Okay, we are ready to get going here pretty soon. Hopefully everybody is wandering back to their desks or their phones, and we can get started. Okay, I think next we're ready to hear from the Middle Tennessee region. And Selena, are you back yet?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I was afraid I wouldn't be able to unmute myself. Good morning. I'm Selena Moore. I'm the Regional Director for Middle Tennessee. And I just want to thank you, board members, staff, commissioner, for taking the time to read over our Middle Tennessee Regional Plan, watch our video for the plan. And I'm just going to go right into answering your questions, Chairman Barry, since we're a little behind on schedule.
That's fine. Go ahead.
One of the things for Middle Tennessee, we were making great strides. We had a really good momentum going, January and February, and then March got here and COVID hit. So that kind of threw our world, spinning. Some of the things that we were making momentum in is our regional planning council and getting our subcommittees set up, and then COVID hit. And on the state board, we still have some of the same members that looked at our plan from last year. And so I think you will see a big difference in last year's plan and in this year's plan. And so one of the questions that you had asked was something that we're proud of. In last year's plan, one of the main comments that we got back from the state board members was that it read like it was 3 separate areas. And that was the honest truth. And I think you will see in this plan, we're a more cohesive unit as a region. We've had a lot of, regional strategies that we've put in the plan. We're planning to do a lot more projects as a region. Of course, across the board, our services, we just had a decrease in enrollments. The only uptick that we have seen just lately is in our dislocated worker numbers. And that is one of the regional projects that we have taken on this time, was to develop a regional rapid response team. And we were going to roll that out with the closure of General Motors when they decided that they were going to close down their 3rd shift. That actually got canceled on us by their union director, Mike Heron. But we're, ready and waiting for a regional approach like that. One of the things that does concern us is the level of business engagement. We had to refer back to our own board, like local board members, when we were putting this plan together, because we did not, the business engagement was just not there at the time due to COVID. And they were, of course, they were concerned with their own businesses and their own employees, but our board members, really helped us out in developing this plan. Our partners did. But we have got a lot of good strategies that are coming from this plan. And now when we, hear of grants that we're getting funding opportunities for, I think you're going to see later on in the next couple of years, we look at those as a region. And then we look at those, how can we carry that out locally? I hope that you found that we are more regionally minded than when we turned in our plan for last year.
I would agree with that, and thank you for pointing it out. And I'm glad to hear that you guys have strategies to get the various local boards working together. That's always the best option, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Selena? Okay. Hearing none, I appreciate the good report. So I will entertain a motion to approve the Middle Tennessee larger region as presented. Christine Hopkins, because you're a member of the Southern Middle Local Board, we will assume your abstention on this particular vote. So we'll just make that assumption based on your involvement there. But anyone want to entertain a motion to approve as presented? Have one from Ronnie Brewer in a second. Looks like a second from Vonda McDaniel. So thank you both for that. Any further discussion regarding the middle region? Hearing and seeing none, I'll ask for the vote with the assumed abstention from Christine. Any other abstention or opposition for before we approve this? Seeing and hearing none, we will say that the Middle Tennessee Regional Plan is approved as presented. So Selena, thank you very much to you and the greater team for that plan and all the work that went into it. All right, so I think we're ready for Northern Middle. And Marla, are you with us today?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman Barry. It's still good morning here to everyone. You had asked about one of the highlights of our plan video, and I hope for those that got to watch it, you will see the passion that we have for workforce development in Northern Middle Tennessee. I was very proud of the fact that we had 2 county mayors in our video, along with the CLEO. And also we had the chairman of the Northern Middle Board and 3 additional board members share to you the successes that we are experiencing in Northern Middle. However, I will say it has been painful the last 4 or 5 months with COVID. And just to give you a little update, on our Title I program, we have had the month of April was probably the hardest hit, where we had a 75% reduction in our enrollment. May was a little bit better, and we averaged about a 50% reduction. But overall, in the last 7 months, comparing it to 2019, our adult program has been reduced by about 23%. Dislocated worker, we're only 13% behind where we were in 2019 and 15% on youth. Our Title II adult education program has had about a 50% reduction in service levels. And one of the questions that was asked in the plan was about the integrated English literacy and civics component under adult ed. And we have 2 providers in Northern Middle. We have NICE, and we have a consortium of the Rutherford County School System and Workforce Essentials. And one of the things that we are doing that's kind of interesting is, as a nonprofit, we have applied for part of the $150 million of CARES Act funding to provide a laptop for all of our adult education and IELC students. So that's definitely a plus. Our Title III program has had a decrease as well, but in Northern Middle, we've had 275,000 new unemployment insurance claims as related to COVID. So those UI staff have been very busy answering thousands of telephone calls and resetting passwords and other login issues. Our Title IV VR partners have had a 31% decrease in applications and a 39% decline in employment outcomes. And our TANF partners have had an overall 42% reduction in their caseload. And Chairman, that's something that you might not think about, because we would think in these times that the TANF welfare caseload might be going up, but that has gone down too. And we only have 700 cases, and that covers a 60 county area in Middle Tennessee. And to give you some perspective on that, just a little over 10 years ago, Madison County and Jackson had 1,000 cases alone in that one county. And now we only have 700 cases to cover 60 counties. One of the things that I'm extremely concerned about, in Northern Middle in February, we had a 2.9% unemployment rate. Just yesterday, when the new numbers were released, we were at 9.9%. And I always don't like to talk about percentages. I like to equate that to people. That's over 102,000 people that are unemployed in Northern Middle. And furthermore, what's more concerning is in February, we had a labor force of a little over 1.1 million. And in July, we had that labor force has gone down to just a little over 1,042,000. That means that over 71,000 individuals have dropped off or dropped out of the labor force. And I can already tell you that working with employers in Northern Middle, they're already scrambling to find employees. And so that reduction in the labor force is a significant hit for us.
Marla, would you say that the reduction is people leaving your region, or just saying, you know what, I'm just done trying because there's nothing to find?
I think it's people that have said, I'm out of it, and I'm just not going to be in the labor force anymore, and have dropped off of the rolls. I don't think that we're having a lot of folks leave the region. We're not seeing that. And believe me, sir, we've got plenty of jobs available for all of those individuals that want to work at this point in time. There also in Northern Middle, our plan was conditionally approved. And again, talking about the passion that we have, I was surprised to learn on Sunday morning that our plan was conditionally approved. All of our qualifying issues related to our youth program. And my surprise stemmed from the fact that when we first submitted our plan on June the 12th, when we received feedback, I thought that all of the conditions that are listed related to our youth program were approved 100% without any negative feedback from the reviewers. And, you know, I really feel like that part of my responsibility is to help make Tennessee's workforce system the best that it can be. And that includes not only reviewing our plans, but also the processes that we have within those plans. And I so appreciate Dr. Lovett and Mr. Roberson taking the time to review with me this week the processes that went through and being able to take feedback from me on how we might improve that, looking at more consistency and scoring in the process. You know, saying that I was surprised, I will say that I would be foolish if I didn't realize that there was not opportunity for Northern Middle to improve our youth program. So that is something actually the Workforce Board has already started working on. And we are right now formulating a robust services model for in-school and out-of-school youth delivery. This includes procuring a new service delivery strategy, which allows for multiple youth providers to deliver services to at-risk youth in the region. Right now, we have one youth provider with multiple referral partners that add value-added services. What we want to go to is procuring an a la carte kind of plug-and-play model that will allow for multiple youth service providers to bid on delivering meaningful youth services, and really focusing again on that youth waiver of in-school youth. This procurement is already underway, and the proposals will be due in this fall, and we have a start date of January 1 of 2021 to have our new youth program in place. And I too appreciate all the work that Carla and Nikisha have done on developing our youth programs. And I am proud to do my part in Northern Middle to help make our youth program better. We will be glad to report to you quarterly on how we're implementing these new strategies and new providers, again, to make Tennessee's workforce system the best that it can be. Thank you, sir.
Marla, I appreciate you addressing that, and I appreciate your perspective that it's not a, you know, it's not a personal issue or anything against that that board for calling out conditions. And I appreciate your perspective to say, look, here's a chance for us to constantly improve, and if we're not looking for those opportunities to grow, then we're not, you know, we're not doing our job. So thank you for looking at it that way, and thank you for addressing those conditions. It sounds like you have some good things in place to get that approved under those conditions. So any comments or questions for Marla or her team?
Do we have, on this labor force reduction, do we have any capacity to see more broadly, like demographics, age, business sector, areas within the region to understand these numbers? I mean, clearly we have this impact for COVID, but is there any way to see that in more granular detail? And this may be just generally across the whole state, not necessarily for this particular region.
I think that's a very good question, and I think it's something that if we do have the ability to dive into that, then we can use that as a recruitment tool to address and maybe bring some of these people into the labor force. I don't know if anyone from the wired unit that develops these numbers and produces the unemployment rates are on the call that might be able to address if we can get more granular information on that.
That's a great question, and we'll take that offline. Marla, I think that is exactly where we'll go, but we'll take that offline and look to see what we can find, especially labor participation and who the folks are that are potentially leaving. So we got that one as homework.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions or comments? Marla, I do acknowledge, I know Ronnie, put in the comments here, we do appreciate the energy and creativity that you guys put into your video presentation. That was a lot of fun. It brought some levity to the presentations. I would say that I don't want to discourage creativity, so keep that kind of stuff up for if we find ourselves presenting this way, further down the line. I would say that it was a little bit choppy, and so I had a harder time following some of the information that you were trying to convey. It was probably more of an editing thing than it was a content thing. So keep up the creativity. Work just a little bit more with your team to make sure that the content's not as choppy. But thank you for submitting it that way. That was fun.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Lakeisha.
Okay. Hi, this is Lakeisha. I'm the Tennessee Tenor Program Director, and I just kind of wanted to provide a little additional insight on what Marla stated about the TANF numbers decreasing. And I kind of wanted to put in the aspect that it's not that everyone is no longer receiving TANF, but as far as our work eligible participants, some have been given short-term exemptions due to be unable to participate in some type of job search or employment because of COVID. So that's where that decreased number is coming from. It's not necessary that they're no longer on our TANF rolls, but they're exempt from having to do that 30-hour job requirement. And it would be because of a reason due to COVID. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you for that clarification. Jay Baker, do you have an additional comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, this is Jay Baker. I represent adult education on the state board. I want to thank Marla for addressing that issue of the integrated English literacy and civics education program. And just to kind of put this out there for other local board members who may have large immigrant populations to be considering. We do put out several million, close to $1 million dollars across the state for serving the immigrant population, in particular, getting on a fast track through career pathways and training and employment. And so particularly in Northern Middle, we have almost $500,000 there. And from our census calculations, about 60,000 or more immigrants in the Northern Middle area. So again, I appreciate Marla addressing that and just would encourage all the local areas to consider, especially if you have those grants from the state, that those are specific for those immigrants to get that employment and training and an integrated education opportunity. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly, thanks for calling out that resource. All right, I'm ready to entertain a motion to accept Northern Middle as presented with the conditions. All right, I see a motion from Ben. And it looks like we have a second from Greg. So any further discussion before we move toward the vote? All right, seeing and hearing none, we will assume that everyone is in favor of the plan as presented with the approved conditions, unless I see additional abstentions or opposition. And seeing and hearing none, we will say that the Northern Middle Plan is approved as presented. So Marla, thank you for all the good work and addressing some of those concerns, and look forward to hearing updates on those as the plan gets put into place. All right, I think we're ready to go to Southern Middle. Wendy, are you with us today? Looking for Wendy. I can't hear you if you're out there. Anyone else on Wendy's team available to help?
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Yes, thank you.
Wendy's here with me, Selena Moore. We were together.
Yes, okay. Good morning, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity to present our plan. One thing we're proud of, as Selena said, is our regionalism. On any new project or grant, we ask, how does this impact our region, not just our local area? We're also proud of our efforts in apprenticeships. We've had 3 new apprenticeships since the pandemic began, and we're looking at pre-apprenticeships right now. Our customer service provider was able to continue as normal after the pandemic hit. The team and the IJC team also, the partners, worked virtually and continued to serve our customers as normal. What we need from our board, we need more employer engagement. What type of training do our employers need? What type of credentialing do we need? Which is tied back to the new grant directed toward short-term training and credentials. Some of the questions from the board centered around our youth program. We at Southern Middle work closely with the high schools and vocational rehabilitation counselors, adult education, community colleges, and TCATs to provide WIOA information to assist the youth with barriers. And some of the activities provided by Southern Middle include tutoring, post-secondary education training opportunities, paid work experience, which aligns the participants' educational and career goals and provides opportunity for youth to gain on-the-job experience. Our work experience provided by South Central Human Resource Agency, our customer service provider, offers short-term work opportunities for eligible youth with little or no work experience. Our employer partners provide a mentorship to these out-of-school youth also. The work experience assists youth with developing positive work habits, which improves communication and also team building skills. We have a work experience program in a few of our high schools, and it's working great.
One of the things we've noticed during COVID is a decline in a lot of our enrollments. Our youth enrollments is something that continued to be steady. Southern Middle actually enrolled, estimated the last time we looked was around 50 to 55 youth through the pandemic. So as a local area, that's something we're counting as a praise that we are continuing to serve those youth. And we're always looking for best practices around the state, things that we can do regionally. We've, went through our youth policies, our supportive service policies as a region in that regional planning council, and we have aligned those to accommodate our participants. I'm going to move into some of the other questions that was presented by the board members. Our plan in Southern Middle was approved with conditions, And so we have went through and answered all the questions. We'll be glad to provide a written, written out for you guys if that's something that you need. One of the questions was, how can the board work towards a technology-driven intake system and process for all workforce partners in the area? Across the state, we have developed a common intake form that is actually being piloted in the Southeast region right now. So that is something we're excited to, once the tweaks are made, that we can start in the Southern Middle region as well. We've also, all of our career advisors, we use Google Voice. So when they take, their cell phones home, because with them being AWS for a lot of the pandemic, we had to have ways for our participants to get in touch with them. So our service provider used Google Voice. And so anytime that someone would call the local office, it rolls right over to their telephone that they have at home. There was laptops purchased for all staff to use throughout COVID. One of the things in Southern Middle that we've heard about for years is the lack of broadband. And that was one of the questions, or concerns that was addressed in the list of questions. And we're excited, especially with the governor's, Tennessee Emergency Broadband Fund grant, the $61 million that's going to be awarded. We're hopeful that we will get a piece of that. But in some of our counties, because with COVID, a lot of parents have been at home with their children. And especially with school starting back, broadband has been a really big issue for us. A lot of the school districts are using their school buses and parking them out into the community and in these rural areas of our counties to use as hotspots. So we're really encouraging those parents, along with their children, when they go to do, classroom work, they take advantage of those hotspots. And so far, we've had a good response, from the school district from those. One of the last questions is more details with coordinating strategies for the Title I adult program. We're going to focus, you heard us earlier about apprenticeships. We've got 3, new apprenticeships that's happened since March. We have not announced, we got word yesterday that the 3rd one was approved hopefully by Monday, and it's a culinary apprenticeship. And so we're hoping that model will be looked at from other regions and that we can share the best practices from that and carry it over into other regions. Consolidated business grants is one of the main things that helps our employers. And so we're excited. We just got word of another funding opportunity with that, ERISA expansion grant that we will be getting some funding for. And we're going to help businesses and participants with that, as well as provide, training activities for adults and dislocated workers. We'll also do, our job assistance with resumes and supportive services. But thank you for giving us the time and opportunity to showcase what Southern Middle has done, because you might remember last year, the first go around, our local plan was denied. And so we really put a lot of, time, thought, and effort into developing this local plan for you.
Yes, thank you, Wendy. Excellent progress on that. Thank you for acknowledging that and addressing some of the conditions that will get this plan approved. I know, appreciate especially calling out the, broadband and technology to the rural areas and making sure that that's not just for Southern Middle, but clearly that continues to be a topic around the state. And my guess, without full investigation, my guess is that the reduction that we're consistently hearing in each of the regions of use is because there's no access from the technology standpoint. So it's an educated guess or gut guess maybe, with nothing to back it up. But if I were a betting man, I'd say it has a lot to do with the reduction. So we'll continue to get that access out there to everybody in the state. Any other comments or questions for Wendy? Okay, good work. And let's entertain a motion to approve the plan with the approved conditions. All right, I see a motion from Marshall. Anybody second? It's like a second from Martha, so thank you for that. For Southern Middle, I'll entertain any other discussion before we take the vote. And hearing and seeing none, we'll ask for the vote. In this case, we will, Christine Hopkins, because you're a Southern Middle board member, will assume an abstention here. But if there are no other abstentions or oppositions, we will assume that everyone is approved. So I'll wait for those abstentions or objections. All right, we will say that the Southern Middle Plan with those approved conditions is ready to go. So thanks for putting that into place, Wendy and your team. Appreciate your good work. All right, let's hear from Upper Cumberland. Becky, are you with us today?
Yes, sir, I'm here. I want to begin my discussion this morning by thanking Dr. Lovett and his staff as we went through the process of writing these plans. I know that they probably wanted to pull their hair out occasionally because we were all asking so many questions, but I am very grateful for the assistance that they provided to us. And I also wanted to just take the time to thank my colleagues as we have worked through the pandemic. We've been each other's cheerleaders, and we've needed that. So thanks to all of you out there that have been such a tremendous support system to each other and to me. You had asked me about one thing that we are proud of. I'd like to give you two examples. One is how we have served our employers, and one is how we have served our participants. With our employers, we early on, we got busy and sent out a survey in partnership with the Highlands Economic Partnership, which is a consortium of counties that have banded together to serve each other, whether it's economic or workforce projects. And so we sent out a survey and we asked several questions, but two of the main questions that we were really interested in is how the government relief funding was affecting their ability to retain those employees that may have been furloughed once they started back in operations. And then the second thing is how many employees do they anticipate needing to hire once their business reopens? So we got some really good feedback on that, and that prompted us to get pretty busy looking at ways to serve our employers. We did our first virtual job fair in light of some of the needs that they had. And we are very busy planning our first drive-through job fair sometime early in September. I think it's the first couple of weeks. So we're eager to see how that works. We have 6 employers who have signed on to be guinea pigs for drive-through job fair, and we're excited to see how that turns out. We also, in our ability to serve our participants, we leveraged a portion of our supportive services policy wherein the board gives the executive director to give exceptions to policy on a case-by-case basis. And this was especially important as we worked with Carla Garrett and the youth. We had many participants who found themselves forced to complete their courses virtually, but had no method or laptop to be able to do that. So Carla worked really hard with us to try to figure out a way to serve those participants. And we have, to this day, provided more than 40 laptops for our participants. Last, you asked me about how serving participants has changed during the pandemic. Like everyone else, we've seen a downturn in participants walking through the door or participants served. However, we have really been on the front lines with over 600 calls a day for UI participants. And I will say that I have received many calls on my personal cell phone. My county mayors have, my staff have, and it was just a pleasure to be able to serve those folks who were in need. So those are the things that we've accomplished during the pandemic.
Thank you, Becky. Good work. The other thing in your presentation that I really, appreciated is calling out, the work that you did, not just for, COVID, but obviously the tornadoes that impacted your area. And so thank you for calling attention to that. I understand the double dose of issues that created. But the other thing I liked was, it seems like you have a best practice of using the Google My Office tool. And so I don't want to get into a lot of detail there, but if other local boards thought that was a good idea, you might give Becky a call and get up to speed, or let her or one of her team members tutor your group. Sounds like you stayed pretty well connected through all this thanks to that tool. So I appreciate pointing that out. Any other comments or questions for Becky on Upper Cumberland? I hear and see none, so I'm going to entertain a motion to accept the plan as presented. I see one from Ben and a second from Martha. So we'll put those as in the record. Any other discussion before we ask for the vote? Seeing and hearing none, we will assume that everyone approves unless I now hear of any opposition or abstentions. All right, hearing and seeing none, we will say that Upper Cumberland Plan is approved as presented. So Becky, thank you to you and your team. Please pass along that appreciation to everyone that was involved in putting that together.
Thank you, Chairman Berry.
Yeah, and we'll keep things moving. Are we ready for East Tennessee Regional? Virginia, are you with us? Virginia, or anyone on that team?
Can you hear us? There we go.
Yes,
Can you hear me now?
Yep, keep going.
All right. Thank you for allowing us to present our plan and to do our PowerPoint and show exactly what our Eastern region has been doing. As always, and as everyone else has said, our numbers are down due to COVID. I would like to say a big thank you to our staff that managed to jump right into UI. And as Rusty said, it's very complicated. Every case is different, so there's rules to go by, but it's extremely hard. So to see that our staff jumped in and took on that endeavor to try to help our customers was amazing to see. As I was driving into Chattanooga, I passed 10 to 12 electrical maintenance trucks, and they were from Scott County and Morgan County, and I'm sure they were headed to our southern neighbors, Louisiana, just coming through this terrible hurricane. So I want to say that is the Tennessee spirit. That is our spirit here in the East. And as we worked on our regional plan, I have to say that we had the best collaboration of all of our partners all across our region. And I want to say a big thank you to the other regional directors and executive directors in our area to make this happen. Also, I would like to touch on the fact that we did field 27,321 calls in the past 4 months that was related to UI. And hopefully these customers have been served. I had the honor to help a customer that had his job for 34 years, went right out of high school, lost his job due to the COVID, and with no hopes of returning as they eliminated his position. And we did get to be able to assist him. So I think that shows what we're out here trying to do to help people. Never had to do a resume. He never had to search for another job until now, 34 years later. So I would commend all of our staff for all of the work they have done, helping with the UI, helping these people get into training. I would like to say what I'm proudest of in our region is the fact that we have come together. We have established our committees, and we have actually got our partners to serve on these regional committees. And I think that is going to make everyone more aware of our regional plan as well as our local plan. And all the support that the State Workforce Board can give down to our locals, we appreciate you being engaged, and I would like to say a big thank you for taking your time to volunteer to serve in your important position on pursuing and helping us develop better workforce policies. It's always good to get the little nudges that we get from the State Workforce Board and for our leadership in Nashville. Sometimes you do get complacent, so we do appreciate that. And I would like to say, this has made us go virtually, which a lot of us was not used to. So we have developed that and been able to implement somewhat, not perfect, but we're getting there. And I'd like to say a big thank you to the state for implementing the electronic signatures so that our customers could get their processes signed much faster. So they really did do a quick job of getting that developed for us out here in the locals. So again, I appreciate y'all's looking at our video, appreciate your support in our areas, and help us continue to serve our customers, whether it be employers or just our one person that needed some training now that he has to leave his job of the 34 years. So I do appreciate your time. Thank you. And keep pushing us, keep helping us to develop the best workforce system here in the state of Tennessee.
Virginia, thank you. Well stated, especially the comments about how the state has helped with advancing technology to make things simpler for so many folks, not just that particular model, but very creative and inventive and pushing things through to react quickly to the greater need for technology. So thank you for that. Any questions or comments for Virginia?
Tim, this is Christine. I just want to say to Virginia and Wendy from Southern Middle and all of the regions, thank them for the services they're providing despite the COVID we've been through. That was impressive, Virginia, and thank you all so much. And like I said, Wendy and the rest of them as well.
Thank you, Christine.
Yeah, well stated, Christine. Thank you. Other questions for Virginia? All right, we've got a few abstentions here just because of the board members who also serve on those local boards. So we'll assume that Marshall Graves and Mayor Brooks and Martha Axford and Mayor Morton will abstain. We'll assume those, so you won't need to call it out. But I will ask for a motion to approve the East plan as presented. And I have that motion from Ron Wade, and it looks like a second from Ronnie Brewer. So any further discussion before we ask for the vote? Seeing and hearing none, with those abstentions that I've already stated, and if there are any more oppositions or abstentions, please let me know now. I see and hear none, so we will say that the East Regional Plan is approved as presented. So Virginia, thanks again for that. And I think we're ready to move on to Southeast Local Board. Michelle, are you with us today?
I'm here. Thank you, Chairman Berry, and thank you all for the opportunity to present our local plan today. I think we have 3 questions that we need to respond to, and in light of everyone's time, I'll jump right into those. I think we were asked to speak about how COVID has impacted the local area. First and foremost, it has obviously had, as everyone else has already stated, a significant impact on the AJC traffic, especially with the closures that we were all forced to do in March. The ability to pivot to virtual services was somewhat slower than we had hoped, and the lack of access to immediate technology limited the ability of some of the case managers to provide a vast array of services from an alternate workstation. We were able to work through that. Our greeter numbers dropped by, the greeter report numbers dropped to about 11% of where we were the 4 months prior to COVID. During the last 5 months, UI has been the forefront of most AJC services, which has limited the ability of staff to focus on other activities that are a part of a full service AJC. But as many of you know, that's just how we have to operate when we're dealt certain situations that we have to respond to immediately. And then we just have to try to find workarounds to make that work for the best for all of our customers and individuals coming in. We did have about a 1,400% increase in call volume due to UI calls coming in. So that was a lot for all the staff to have to manage, and everyone stepped to the plate. And I think we tried to do our best, level best, at answering and responding to all of those. All of our AJCs are currently open, and COVID-19 has created many of the same staffing issues for American Job Centers as it has for all other business and industry sectors. It's difficult to operate full-service centers without the ability to maintain adequate staffing that could be caused by positive test results or quarantine requirements due to potential exposure. The excessive amount of conflicting data that's out there, from the federal level, this and local, it makes it more difficult to manage that in an American Job Center. We have multiple partners working in there. But with that said, I think we've all done very well given the fact that we have had to do all that. Well, that was the negative portion of COVID, but I also like to look at the positive that's come out of this pandemic. And I mean, there's always positives that come out of everything. And I think the most positive impact has been around our virtual services and the innovative approaches that we've been able to implement. I think it's created an elevated need to provide more services in the virtual world. The rest of the business and industry has lived in the virtual world, and we've been a virtual economy for many years. But many government programs, I think, have been slower to implement new technologies. And I think a lot of this can be directly connected to shrinking budgets and slower policy implementation of systems due to policy restrictions at many levels that can impede that sometimes. But I think we've all started to look at those and to try to make positive changes, and that's what I can see as a plus. Also, I think we've seen a general interest in leadership and frontline staff in exploring possibilities centered around virtual services. I'm pleased to hear that there's been a $2 million investment set aside with CARES Act funding to help expand the virtual AJC. And I think this has the potential to be a game changer for some of our rural communities, so long as our broadband capabilities exist to push out those services. Our training providers are beginning to explore offering more courses virtually. Some of this has been driven by the COVID impact, but once again, I think it's promising. And then in the absence of a pandemic or crisis, many of these new implementations can continue and will alleviate some of the hardships from some of our targeted populations around transportation and those types of things. I think it could truly be the catalyst we needed to move the needle in some of these efforts. And then once again, dealing with policy issues around some of that, I think those will have to be looked at as well. We look forward to continuing to work through our challenges and find innovative ways to improve our services to the public. You always find, or I myself personally, in a time of crisis, teamwork typically makes the difference in whether or not you survive. And by continuing to eliminate silos and work together collectively to improve our systems, I think this pandemic can be seen in a more positive way for the public workforce system to have a lasting impact to our region. One of the things that I'm most proud of in our local plan is the Grundy County Welding Program that we highlighted, Economic and Community Development's 3-star program, the Grundy County High School, Chattanooga State Community College, and the Grundy County Sheriff's Department with Sheriff Shrum. Mayor Brady and Sheriff Shrum were both instrumental in coming together to make sure that we needed to push those services out and continue to focus. We had 25 trainees last year that attended training at the high school welding lab. 14 of those have received an AWS certification in welding. And the last 7 that went through that cohort was a cohort of inmates from the Grundy County Jail, and they all passed and received their certification. Many have been able to be placed in jobs, and the American Job Center continues to work with them. We want to continue these types of partnerships, especially in our rural communities, and want to work with other schools and help and do that, and also to expand the offerings that we're able to do there. One of the needs, I think, from Southeast for the local or for the state workforce board would be a continued support from the state level in the shared vision across all departments, and to provide more technical assistance to the regions and locals on how we all work together and grow our talent pipeline. And I think what I'm looking for there when I say that is one mission, one message. I think that's critical, and how we all try to eliminate silos and focus on the real true need, which is to develop our talent pipeline. And that concludes my presentation, Chairman Berry. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. One comment that I had, I know that in your presentation you talked about creating the dashboard. With numbers, and this isn't just for you. It's really, there was a lot of presentations that talked about establishing the KPIs and so on. And one thing I would ask is that, not just of you, but of all the presentations that said that, just make sure that when we're showing numbers, that we're not just showing quantities, that we have some sort of comparison. So it's the comparison to the goals or comparison to the previous year. I'm sure you assumed that when you mentioned that you would be sharing those or creating a dashboard, but a lot of times we just see the number, and if it's not with some sort of a comparison to goal or comparison to where we are year over year, then it doesn't tell the full story that we're probably looking for. So just make that request, not just to you, but to all the other regions who are going to be presenting and updating us with KPIs. I also want to point out, if you haven't noticed in the chat, that Deputy Commissioner Thomas has provided a link for us so that we can see labor force reports every month by county. So that's great information. Make sure that you keep that link available. What other comments or questions does the board have from Michelle?
Comment to Michelle. Way to go, Michelle, on the welding program. That's what we're hoping to see statewide, that some of these things they've started to develop into really some skill building training programs. So thank you so much.
Chairman, as a member of that group, and I, of course, would cheerlead for their engagement. It's just been really fantastic. I appreciate their engagement through the COVID, and certainly being from South Cumberland Plateau, the work that's being done in Grundy County is very much appreciated. So thank you, Michelle, and the whole team.
You're very welcome, and thank you all for the comments. We are planning to continue all of those efforts.
Thank you so much. It is so amazing to hear those kinds of things, because, Grundy County has had a hard time in getting training programs on the mountain, and it was really refreshing to hear what you just said.
Yes, and it was a work in progress, and it's still a work in progress, but we're more than happy to continue to try to push some of those out. We've had a couple calls already about expanding some of those, and hope to reach out to Bledsoe County next, and try to get some things going there as well.
Well, I think you'll find our TCATs around the state can provide that service, and is more than willing to do that, and that is something that we hopefully could put in almost ever, especially with the incarcerated group around this whole state.
Good comments, Christine and Marshall. Thank you. I will entertain a motion to accept the plan for the Southeast region.
Can you take the motion verbally?
Sure.
Okay, because I didn't see where you write it in. So I make a motion to accept it.
All right, so Christine makes the motion. Any second? All right, looks like the first second we got was from Ben, so thank you for that. Any further discussion for Southeast? Seeing and hearing none, we will assume the abstention from Marshall and Mayor Brooks, just because of their association with that local board. But we will assume everybody else approves unless I now hear of abstain or opposition. And I see and hear none, so we will say that the Southeast plan is approved. So thank you for your good work on that. Bill, let's hear about East.
Thank you, Chairman Barry and board members. It's my pleasure to present the East Workforce Plan to you today. Chairman, you asked what we were proud of. The one thing we're proud of is that we have strong workforce activities across Governor Lee's key priorities. Those key priorities are rural economic development, criminal justice reform, and vocational and workforce development. So let's go back to rural economic development. In our 16 counties, 8 of our counties are distressed or at risk, which makes the East area having more distressed or at-risk counties than any other LWDA. And on an annual $8 million budget, we're spending $3 million a year in those 8 counties. One thing that we're awful proud of in those 8 counties is that we are able to offer rural transportation services subsidized for WIOA candidates in those counties. Criminal justice reform. At the Morgan County Correctional Facility, a Tennessee Department of Correction 2,300 bed prison, maximum security prison, we've worked with our Tennessee Board of Regents partners to offer instruction behind the bars in welding technology, building technology, and information technology. In our local jails, our WIOA Title II, that's adult education, is in all 16 county jails, and WIOA Title III and Title IV are in many of our jails as well. WIOA Title IV being voc rehab. In vocational and workforce development, we've been able to work with our local high schools, career and tech ed programs, especially in Cobb County and Granger County, where WIOA Title IV clients receive pre-ETS work-based learning opportunities as part of their high school curriculum. So in those 3 areas of Governor Lee's priorities, rural economic development, criminal justice reform, and voc rehab, and vocational and workforce development, we have some key strong activities. Another thing we're proud of is that we met or exceeded all of our federal performance targets. And a 5th and final thing that I'll mention here about what we're proud of is that we are expanding our American Job Center footprint in the coming year to place an American Job Center in the Morgan County Correctional Facility, the first American Job Center in a Tennessee Department of Corrections facility. And we're also driving down the American Job Center into our high schools with placement in Cobb County and in Union County high schools, which are both in distressed or at-risk counties. You asked what we needed help on, but let me first talk about our service levels. We answered over 43,650 calls in the last 3 months about unemployment insurance, and our partner staff provided meaningful assistance. And once Title III staff moved into more direct assistance, we were able to handle those calls. In Title II, I'll get to my census report in a minute, but in Title II, they were incapacitated to a degree because of some customers couldn't become engaged with Title II adult ed because they didn't have internet. But they got they got innovative, and they started sending out packets to students who were then able to be engaged in their studies for their high school equivalency test. So let me give you those numbers. In Title I, we had a 25% increase in customers for the last 4 months. In Title II, we had a 25% decrease. In Title III, we had a 19% decrease in customer service. In SNAP and ET, we had a 30% decrease. In Title IV, we had a 53% increase in customers served. And in TANF, we had a 21% decrease. As Michelle said, our VOS greeter numbers fell off. We had an 89% decrease, which equated to Michelle's 11% loss there. So our service levels were affected by COVID, but we had two highlights in that WIOA Title I and Title IV saw increases. And finally, Commissioner, Chairman, you asked what we needed help on. About a year ago, we received a report from Ernst & Young, and in the East, they recommended 21 concrete recommendations to drive improvement in workforce development activities in East. And we've just come through a period where we've developed a local plan, and I do applaud the department on reading the Ernst & Young plan and giving us more time to do that. That's behind us now. And I'd like to see us address the Ernst & Young plan in the East area, and I'd need some help from the State Workforce Board and the State Workforce Division Services team. Thank you for the time. I'll entertain any questions anyone has.
Bill, thank you. And the request noted. Any comments or questions for Bill in regard to his request or questions about the plan? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the plan as presented. All right, I have a motion from Ben and a second from Brandy. So any further discussion for Bill or the East Local? Hearing and seeing none, we will ask for the vote. The only abstentions we're going to assume are for Martha Axford and for Mayor Morton, just because of your associations with that local board. So otherwise, do I hear any other abstentions or opposition as the vote? Hearing and seeing none, we will say that the plan for the East Local Board is approved as presented. Nice work, Bill, and our thanks to you and your team there. And so on the home stretch, Northeast, Kathy, are you with us today?
Good morning. This is Kathy Pierce. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, Kathy, thank you.
Wonderful. Good morning. Thank you for taking the time, allowing us to present to the board, to answer the questions that you have, and to give us the opportunity to talk about those things that we have done in response to COVID and those things that we are proud of and the needs that we have. Again, I'll begin by thanking the board. I also need to recognize the input of our regional director, Mr. Brian Decker. He sat here with us, socially distanced, and participated in the plan. in the revised plan and in the workup for the presentations, and I am grateful to him for the work that he has done. Being last is both a good position and a difficult position. One is that you have already heard similar things that all of the areas are doing that we likewise are doing, and impacts that we have had. I'll start with the answer to the question that the chairman posed, and then move to our what we're proud and what we need. Yes, we did have a change in our clients served, as has already been mentioned. We did a shifting of resources from the typical normal workday to the answering of the need for assistance for unemployment insurance. The Northeast area had answered 27,321 requests for assistance for UI from April 1st to August 21st. Also, something that has significantly impacted, I know, not just our area, but all areas, has been the shift in the training methodologies of the partner institutions. For instance, 91% of the training institutions in our area closed or canceled classes and went to on-site and canceled on-site training and went primarily to online education, which in some cases for some of our participants created a barrier because they lacked the technology to access the training that had moved online. Especially when we were forced to close the American Job Centers and then later opened them only to appointments. We thought in our Northeast area, being rural kind of like it is, that we would likely avoid the spikes in the COVID transmission that some of the more urban areas had witnessed. Unfortunately, that did not work out that way. Instead, we have moved into the red zone and have stayed there for some time. So these issues continue to impact our school's ability to return to what the new normal might be. We specifically had difficulties and were impacted negatively in our rural initiatives that we had planned. Michelle mentioned the welding program in Grundy County. We had a plan in place with the TCAT in Morristown, the Rogersville branch of that, to work with Hancock County to stand up a high school-based evening program for adults in welding. And when the COVID hit, that was immediately had to be left behind. So we have already reached out to Ivan to request permission for reprogramming of our rural initiative money around some of the newer programs that they are doing and that will be available, perhaps to use some of the funds for increasing of technology. The school closures also impacted a lot of the work that we were doing with the career and technical education directors. We are reaching out to them now. They still do not have specific plans in place for how they're going to roll out their work-based learning that we had planned to do, so we continue to explore that type of activity. Something that hasn't been mentioned that has been challenging to us has to do with those parents who have to remain at home because their children are not in school, or they can't go back to work because they have lost their child care. So one of the needs that we have would be to put together the resources to provide additional child care facilities. In terms of something that we are proud of, we have been able to mirror the state model in that we have weekly partner collaboration calls. The engagement and level of information exchange and dedication to the mission of the American Job Centers among all the partners on those weekly calls has been phenomenal. Secondly, we are certainly proud of our rapid response efforts. We had an 800% increase in the number of warn notices that we received. We were able to move really quickly to virtual mechanisms for assisting employers and the individuals who were being dislocated. In addition to that, we are evaluating the makeup of our rapid response team and have added additional partners to that group. In terms of what we need, I would begin by saying thank you to Dr. Lovett for his weekly calls. We need that philosophy that he employs in terms of listening to the issues that we face on a daily basis and doing his very best to provide us solutions. We are grateful for the opportunity to have some CARES funding for new incumbent worker training programs, which are always very successful in our area. And we need additional technical assistance around the use of virtual technologies that others have mentioned. We have been able and are thankful for the virtual technology that has been mentioned already, that the state has stood up. I know they are also purchasing software to provide for virtual job fairs. Again, we have those scheduled in our areas and are looking forward to doing that. Employers are asking us for that ability and the ability to interview immediately the candidates that attend those virtual job fairs. So basically, we're in the same situation that the other areas are in. Would have to give a shout out to the Department of Labor staff and our partner staff, and certainly the staff who have been working so diligently in the American Job Centers during this difficult time, answering all the questions, dealing with situations that basically have improved, and we appreciate the work that Rusty and his team have done to make the unemployment insurance system function more smoothly for those individuals who were having difficulties. So we are continuing to move forward with our enrollments at a virtual level. We did see decreases, and again, you've heard those percentages from the other areas. In Title I, we saw a 34% decrease from the period of April 1st to August the 21st. Title II, a 60% decrease. Title III, a 35% decrease. The one bright spot in our area was SNAP employment and training, had a 40% increase year over year. Title IV had a 53% decrease. TANF an 8% decrease. The number of employers that we have served in terms of being captured in the VOS greeter and in the Job Search EN system decreased, but we have seen it increase in other areas, like I mentioned, with rapid response outreach to assist those employers in filing unemployment insurance claims directly and helping their employees who are being laid off to file those claims and get those benefits quickly. With that, I'll close because I know we're running short on time. I have 3 pages of bullet points of things that I could have talked about, and I will be happy to continue to do so, but with that, I'll close and thank you for the opportunity and request approval of our plan.
Kathy, it's evident that you guys are doing good work, and I would encourage anybody to reach out to her to get those bullet points and see what else is going on in the area. So any questions or comments for Kathy or her team there in Northeast? All right, I hear and see none, so I'm going to entertain. It looks like Martha has put in a motion to approve as presented. Do I have a second? And I have a second from Ben. All right, so any further discussion for Northeast? All right, hearing and seeing none, I will move on toward the vote. And I will assume that everybody approves unless I now hear of abstentions or opposition. And seeing and hearing none, I will say that we have approved the Northeast plan. Kathy, thanks to you and your team and all the good work that you've put into that. We'll look forward to watching all of that plan get carried out. We're about ready to adjourn. I want to give a huge thanks to Patrice and to Eiler for putting all of this together. I know there were so many more hands that helped do that, but want to call special attention to them and getting us all connected. We're good at this. I hope we don't have to keep doing it forever, but we know how to do it well if the conditions require. So thanks to those two. Any other questions or comments? And thank you for calling out that and also saying that the meeting was well done. So thanks for all the good work that went into it. All right, we will say that this meeting is adjourned, and we'll look forward to the next meeting coming up this fall. So thanks for everyone's time and attention. Thanks for staying on a little bit later than planned. I have 17,000 steps. I am ready to sit down and eat lunch. All right, thanks, guys.
Bye.
Good job, Jerry.
Thank you, Chairman. Good meeting.
Thank you.
Well organized. To both you and the Department of Labor, thank you.
Awesome job, everyone.